Hey everybody, I am really liking these videos. The response has been amazing, and you know what? It can make a really good system of, I still love uploading those very edited out videos, the long ones, but in the meantime, while I'm making those, I can make these ones. So again, thank you for watching these videos. The response has been awesome, and I love reading your comments. Speaking of which, that's actually what I want to do today. In the last video, I asked you to, if you're comfortable, in the comments, give me your own sexual hangups or insecurities, and I'll make a response video. Now, I need to say at the very top, I am not a sex therapist. Definitely not. I'm in training to be a sex educator, so I'm not really supposed to give therapy-like responses to some of these things, but that's mostly regarding cases of abuse. So mainly I'm just gonna be giving you my own thoughts. Take this with a grain of salt. This is just two people kind of kicking the tires and, trying to help a brother out, I guess you could say. So our first user, by the way, these are anonymous. Every comment that I'm about to read out, I made sure they gave permission for me to read it. If you see yours in this video and you change your mind and want me to take it out, no problem. Just leave a comment or email me and I will take it out of the video. So no worries there. Anyway, let's get started. Our first user says, "Hey Candles, I'm loving your videos, man. Keep up the good work." Thank you. I'm 22 years old, and for the longest time, I have been a porn addict. Since I was 13, I've had these sexual desires that I haven't been able to properly output in a healthy manner or have any man or woman in my life that I could talk to or even ask for guidance on, which has resulted in me consistently gooning to porn for 9 years now, which is crazy now that I'm wording it out loud. It's to the point that it has infected my mind and thoughts. It's very difficult for me to speak to a woman without making up sexual fantasies in my mind. It's disgusting because these women are human beings, and I failed to treat them as such, hence why I've had such a hard time building genuine relationships with them. Anyways, I do crave for sex just as you do. Feeling the genuine connection, love, and being with another is something I strive for. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to have sex with a friend of mine that I had been dating a year ago, but unfortunately, and I hate to admit this, but I was nervous that I couldn't even get it up. I spent a long time assuming that the sole reason was that I was simply nervous and needed to be in a better environment. But after taking the time to do a deep dig into porn and human psychology, I've come to the conclusion that the reason I couldn't really get into it was that I was so accustomed to watching porn that the idea of having sex wasn't engaging enough. I feel disgusted with myself. I don't know if I used the proper wording there, but I'm sure you understand. Anyways, I understand that my mind is simply way too sexualized with the porn I spent years consuming, which had evolved into various types: hentai, furry hentai, regular porn. I don't know if you've ever made a video on the topic that I had mentioned, but I could use some advice on the steps I should take to desexualize my mind and make a healthier balance between porn or whatever healthy sexual activities in real life. That's a really good comment, and thank you for sharing. I have actually made a video about Rule 34 and the psychology of Rule 34. I'll link it in the description. It's kind of an older video, but it might help you out there. I don't remember if I give any specific solutions to a problem like this in that video, but I definitely talk about the psychology of people who really seek out Rule 34 and hentai specifically. A lot of the times those terms are just interchangeable for me. There is something to be said about consuming a lot of animated porn specifically, and I've definitely heard that from other people. Watching porn and then not enjoying your first time. I don't know if you know who Markiplier is. He's pretty popular. But he had a channel with Ethan Nestor back in the day called Unis Honest. It's deleted now, so you won't be able to go and find the clip. But there's a video where they're sucking in helium. You can probably find the clip of this online. But Mark talks about his first time and how he was really deep in the porn trenches, and that led to him having a really negative first experience. The first time he ever had sex, he had to fake his own orgasm. So it's definitely not that uncommon. And the getting nervous thing, that is totally normal. I'd honestly say, I'm not going to go so far as to say most people, but I'd say a really good chunk of first-timers can't get it up or aren't fully in the moment at least, because they're so worried about performing for their partner. Getting nervous is completely normal, and that will become less so the more you have sex, as long as you don't have actual erectile dysfunction. If you continue to have sex or, masturbate, and you keep not being able to get it up, that might be a reason to go to the doctor. But if you can masturbate and it's hard enough, then it's likely just the nerves, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. Now, when it comes to gooning and having sexual thoughts, remember that fantasy isn't reality. There's a big difference there. I also made a video on that. I'll try to remember to link it in the description, but it's so important to recognize. Studies actually show that people who fantasize about something tend to not act it out in real life, and that is such an important fact to remember. There's no danger of your mind taking over your impulses and you doing something out of your control. You're in control of your own mind. Now, it is true that when you're having sex, your inhibitions are lowered and you might engage in risk-taking behavior. But these fantasies are not reality. You could consume porn that is very off the deep end, and you can consume things like consensual non-consent, which is like rape fantasy porn, stuff like that. And again, it's so important to remember that in those videos you're consuming, I'm not saying you're consuming CNC specifically, but it's the most extreme example. You know that the person you're not having sex with is a furry, right? You can consciously recognize that, and it's kind of two different experiences completely. I recently went through, the experimenting with toys, and it really blew my mind how different the sensation of an actual or a simulated vagina felt on my dick. That was so different than feeling my hand. It just really got into my head that, okay, masturbating and watching porn and fantasizing, all of these things are completely different than real sex. You can incorporate those things into sex, for sure, but there's definitely a difference. All of this is to say, I would not worry about it. I know that's hard just to say, oh, don't worry about it. But trust me, you are in control of your own mind and you do not need to worry about that cognitive dissonance. But if it is really bothering you how much you get aroused during the day, or, you don't want to get aroused that much, you could identify the triggers for your arousal. Dr. K does talk about this a lot. At what points during the day are you getting turned on? Maybe you could take some steps to sidestep those events. Maybe try to make adjustments to your social media algorithm to get you to see less of that stuff. What times of the day do you normally watch porn? Is it when you come and sit down on the couch? Well, then make a habit to not sit down for at least an hour after you get home. That could be something to try. And I'll just say this, I don't know how often you masturbate, but I used to be a twice daily person every day since I was 12, and that was 11 years ago. Until around about a year ago, so about a decade of twice daily every day. And then I started to have longer sessions, but spread out. A lot of you listening to this who are my regular viewers have seen, or you guys have heard me talk about scheduling masturbation and how that can really help you. And I would definitely recommend this if you feel like it's too much on your life. Set aside 1 or 2 hours to specifically enjoy yourself. I would do this and afterwards I would feel satisfied for like a week. I honestly think it's because I wasn't rushing through it and I was actually letting myself enjoy it without shame. That does a lot. And you kind of feel like you don't need it nearly as much when you don't see it as a crutch. But that's just my experience, and that might help you. Another user writes, "Incredible video, thank you, and eye-opening to the sexual art side of things. As someone who struggles with an addiction, It's very welcoming to see that it isn't demonized like it is in so many other places. Additionally, I do have my own little story or personal journey to say. It's about discovering my sexuality, and more so how a sexuality can change and shift with life experiences. When I was younger, I was raised a Christian, and had those ideologies put into me at a young age. So as I grew up, sex positivity wasn't the greatest and sexual discovery was slow. Despite that, though, I still rebelled against the standardized ideals of Christianity and experimented personally. Starting straight, I pushed my boundaries of what I was okay with and delved into things that I could have been ostracized for. Ostracized me from my family or my religion at the time. Despite it, though, I was very dedicated to discovering my sexuality, and I soon, with lots of research and experiments, learned that I was asexual and aromantic. But despite that, still had feeling, if they showed up for both men and women. As time passed, I accepted myself as that, and I was happy. Then I got into a relationship and discovered that, despite my seemingly concrete sexuality, I had both romantic and sexual feelings for my partner. And with a bit more research, realized that I was a branch of aroace called reciprosexual and recipromantic. It's truly been a ride to get myself as informed as I am about my personal sexuality, but despite all the times where I was doubtful or unsure due to feelings I hadn't fully understood yet, I am glad I've gone down this journey, and I hold excitement on any future developments that could happen and let me grow closer to my truest self. I apologize for stumbling over my words. Sometimes these comments have run-on sentences just because that's how people on the internet write. But, that's great that you took the time and responsibility to learn about yourself. It sounds like you've really got it all figured out. So, I don't know why I'm giving you advice, but it is nice to hear your story. I will say, I'm not familiar with that term, reciprosexual or recipromantic. Recipromantic. That's a cool term. I'm not familiar with it at all, but if that term works for you, then that's great. I want to use this comment to comment. Ironically enough, I know some people will hear that term reciprosexual and go, "Oh, brother, not another one." But honestly, the way I kind of see it, as long as you don't get mad at people for not automatically knowing it, then I really don't see a problem with using a term like that. In my opinion, I've come to find that labels are something that are really just for you to give yourself closure, rather than forcing it on the rest of the world to conform to that. I don't know if you would agree with that person who commented this, but that's at least my justification for using terms like this. Because let's be real, right? A lot of people on the right side of politics, the conservative side, have a hard time with this over-labeling of identity and sexuality, because it adds difficulty to something that they already probably didn't understand very well to begin with, right? And if we ever want to hope to open up problems of sexuality and identity to groups like conservative groups, I think it would do us a lot of good to be aware of why people are really closed off to people like us. People who are comfortable in this stuff, because a lot of the times I've existed in both realities where I was extremely progressive or extremely conservative, and I can say I feel like the label thing is it's just the labels. Like, they don't have a problem with anything about how we choose to live our lives. It's just the fact that we label ourselves as something that isn't common. I know that's not what your comment was about at all, but I just feel like it's a really good conversation to have. And thank you for sharing. This user writes, "I have always been shy about myself as plus-sized male with pretty average measurements, never feeling adequate enough even when told I'm a fine size. I would like to guess it was due to the bully I faced as a kid, whether it was classmates making fun of me while changing for gym class, being called small by cousins, or the other ways I don't think YouTube would all be happy to read. True. Being pansexual doesn't make things any easier either, especially since I'm an only child. It definitely seems like you have a few insecurities here that all kind of affect and feed into each other. Because I'm reading that you have an insecurity about being small down there, but you also have an insecurity about being overweight or just too big. There is kind of a correlation there. I don't know how big you are in your body, And I don't know how small you are when it comes to your size, even though you said you're pretty average. If you have like a really big gut, it can make your penis actually look way smaller, and the base of your penis can be covered up by the tissue around your fat area. So it might be that you are bigger than you know because it's being covered up by just a little bit of that chub fat. I have fat down there as well, and it does cover up like half an inch of my own. So on a purely physical level, I think it's really important to know that you might be a little bit bigger than you think. But it's also important to remember on the mental side that the only opinion that truly matters is yours, right? And furthermore, the second most important opinion is your partner. And it sounds like you had a partner or have one, and they say it's just fine. I would honestly just take their word for it. It doesn't seem big to you because, your face isn't right up against it. But trust me, to the person who might be giving you oral sex, that thing is huge. Speaking as somebody who has tried a dildo in their mouth, and it's really not easy, like genuinely not easy. Being small, or average even, can suck, but it can be overcome with a really good technique, If you said your body is on the bigger side, if you put the work in to get in shape and build muscle and get rid of some of that fat tissue, if you are overweight, and that's the reason you're big, you could transfer all of that fat into muscle pretty effectively. I'm not like a personal trainer, so I don't know if that's how it works specifically, but it sounds like you're endomorphic, which means you have a very wide body frame, and a wide body frame that isn't necessarily like six-pack level, but just a wide body frame in general can be really attractive to somebody. It can be just as attractive as a big dick. Plus, you got a good technique, you can have a ton of newfound confidence. You hear this a lot, I'm sure, but it really isn't about size, honestly. The people who are a little more cultured and know what they're doing, know how to have good, interesting sex, they know that it's more about technique and the little quirks about their partner that really make it worth it. This user writes, I have a big question that I know will be debated to the end of the earth, but I find Futanari very sexy, but I don't want to treat the trans community as a porn tag. I know there is a difference between Futa and trans, but still. Is there a healthy way to see Futanari sex positively without being offensive to the trans community? Similar case for me as femboys. I want to enjoy them, but they're always in the back of my mind that they cause people to see LGBTQ as sexual inherently when it isn't. So I actually made a video a little while ago called All the Roads Lead to Futanari that talks about Futanari as a concept. Now, if you're new to the channel and you don't know what Futa is, Futa or Futanari is basically a subgenre of pornography that's usually animated, where you have a purely female presenting character, purely feminine, but they have a dick. In the story of Futanari, if a character had a backstory, the backstory of the character might be, they were a woman, they've always been a woman from birth, but they suddenly had a spell cast on them and they grew a dick. Usually a very big dick too. That's what Futanari is. So here's the most important part I feel from that video that I made. So, a little bit of backstory. Finally, the most profound effect. Every character I draw is Futanari. That's why I call this the Futanari problem. The boundaries of sex and gender are completely broken in the Candles universe. By looking at all kinds of references, by experiencing other people's fantasies through their own works, it sort of causes sex dynamics to be broken down into their base elements. Sex characteristics might be found on any character. Dynamics that are typical for one group are now found in another. Stereotypes can be leaned into, broken, or completely ignored if it suits the scene. For better or for worse, drawing my own porn has had this really interesting effect of breaking the concept of gender. Drawing a Futanari character doesn't even feel weird or different anymore. And sometimes I forget that it isn't natural. Maybe this will eventually be a net positive as it breaks down those traditional gender barriers. I'd like to think so. That was the blurb from that video. And basically, what I'm saying here is that being attracted to Futanari can be a net good. because it kind of allows you to look at sex without the typical gender barriers. It can be a really good thing to decouple penis from masculine in your mind, because they are not one and the same. And honestly, I would not worry about offending the trans community. I think it's really big of you to be worried about offending them, but in the comments of the Futanari video I made, I got a lot of feedback in the comments saying that most trans people aren't really offended by it. Obviously, there are some who definitely are, but I think the vast majority really aren't. It is truly a different thing. I mean, Futanari, like I said a little bit ago, it's a character who was most likely a woman from birth, who just had a penis magically placed on her. It lacks the journey of discovery that people who are transitioning often go on. And for that reason, I think a lot of trans people don't even see it as remotely the same thing. Because trans is very emotional, and Futanari usually doesn't focus on the emotions of having a penis. You might find a woman being like, wow, this is so much fun using this new tool. Clearly just having it magically placed on them. There's not usually a deep exploration of what it means to have a penis. So, in short, I would not be too worried about it. Futanari is a really, really popular category, and you are not alone. This user says, I think some of this stuff can be quite harmful to some people, especially if they use this stuff for emotional coping, and if it gets in the way of doing life stuff to progress and to build. This is my understanding that I've gotten from watching Dr. K. Shout out Dr. K. Love that guy. And you know, it is true. The stuff that I'm saying on this channel isn't always helpful. It requires a lot of self-reflection and deciding whether or not it's going to benefit your view of sex or it might negatively impact it. But that's up for you to decide. Porn shouldn't be your replacement for a relationship, but there are ways where it can be used positively. You know, a lot of gay people probably found out they were gay from watching gay porn. Same for lesbians, and pretty much every represented group out there. I make my videos for the people who might need it. I will only make a video on a certain topic, if I feel that, statistically speaking, it's going to do more good than bad. If I think it's going to do more bad than good, I won't make the video. I definitely cannot control how you're going to absorb this information, but I do feel like it's important to have out there for the people that desperately need it, if that makes sense. Because porn is like video games. We've all heard the argument, video games cause violence, blah blah blah. Video games aren't inherently bad. It's only when you add poor mental health as a base, and then add video games on top of it, that video games become a negative influence. And porn is like that. It inherently isn't bad, unless there's some abuse going on in the porn itself. But that's a different story. Porn itself is not bad, but you as a person need to self-reflect on whether or not you should be listening to it or not. This user writes, for some reason, I can't get off my unconscious mind the flawed belief that my partner should be my sole focus during intimacy. Maybe it is because how I was raised, likely because of traumatic first experiences, grooming, but I always feel that urging feeling that I should be an object of pleasure instead of experiencing it. It even made me think that I was just a submissive masochist for a good few years, until I finally came to see that I really didn't enjoy feeling used like that. It goes as far as making advances on my partner not even because I'm horny, but because I at times get carried away thinking I have to please him, that men have needs and I need to fulfill them. It's even worse when I feel that I failed, as it makes me feel as if I failed as a partner. Thankfully, my partner is a great guy that always makes sure I'm okay, and actually wants stuff before we follow through with anything, so I don't fall victim to myself. That is honestly an amazing story. I could tell how you were so genuine in this comment. And above all, I'm glad that it sounds like your partner is responding to it very well. In sex education and training, there's a lot of focus on aftercare for people with trauma, but there is almost no focus on how you, as a partner of somebody who's been through trauma, how you can handle it well, and how you can help them through it. There definitely needs to be a bigger focus on that aspect as well. And this experience of yours is definitely something you could unpack in therapy. Again, I'm not a licensed therapist, but in my opinion, if you're communicating with your partner and it's getting better, then I don't really see a reason to change direction. If you're communicating and you both feel like you're improving and you're both having fun, I would say you are really on the right track. But if you want extra outside help, a therapist probably could do you some good. As for easier solutions, maybe you could look into different sex positions or kinks or whatever that you or your partner might be into. You know, really make the activity of sex for you guys, really make it your own thing. Your own thing. You don't want it to be confused with any traumatic experiences. Something to help your brain recognize this is me and my partner, no one else. It's special to us. You know, you could also ask him to really vocalize his pleasure with moans and other sounds to prove to your mind that he's really enjoying it. I know guys love moans and sounds, but really anybody does. People love knowing that they're pleasing their partner. He might be a little awkward about it at first, moaning and doing all that stuff, but it sounds like he's willing to try certain things. And I just want to say, you don't need to worry about fulfilling his needs. I don't know you two personally, but, you know, no one's needs should come before yours in a situation like this. Sure, it is true that sometimes we have sex to please our partner if we're just not feeling aroused ourselves, on the same level they are, but who knows? He might have been doing the same thing. If you communicate that you want sex, even if he's not up for it, he might have also been not really up for it either. You don't know until you communicate. I mean, you could say something like, hey, I'd be up for it tonight if you are. Could do it, don't have to do it, whatever. That might, I don't know. I'm not saying to give the interaction kind of a blasé, like, whatever attitude, but I wouldn't worry about feeling the need to fulfill his needs. If he's a good partner, he'll understand if you're not up for it. It's totally fine. It sounds like he really knows your history and he helps you through it. I bet he would really understand if you just weren't up for it sometimes. I had a lot more comments. I only made it through like half of them, but I've already been talking for a long time now, and I think I might save the other comments for another video. My voice is getting kind of worn out, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any sexual insecurities of your own and you want to leave a comment under this video, please feel free to. And if you're comfortable with me sharing it, please clarify that you are comfortable with it. And I might make a follow-up video. So thank you everybody so much for watching. My name is Candles. I love you all. Good night.